It's another edition of Time About the Movies coming to you on this Valentine's Day 2025 as we're taking a look at the 5 films of Valentine's Day 2008. Sort of, the day after Valentine's Day. But then again, most of these movies are opening up on Valentine's Day just to get that extra money before the weekend takes shape. Of course, this is also leading into President's Day weekend, but we got 5 movies to look at here, a wide assortment of movies in general, and this is when studios are starting to put out the movies that they believe in. Whether or not they turn out to be good is to be determined. So let's go ahead and get right to it, because we have a wide assortment of movies here from different genres, different ends of the spectrum, whatever you want to look at here. But let's go ahead and get to it with the first one we have here, and that's Hayden Christensen and Doug Liman's follow-up to The Bourne Identity and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That is, of course, Jumper. I mean, simple, straight concept here, but a good concept overall. You have Hayden Christensen starring as a young man capable of teleporting as he's pursued by a secret society intent on killing him, with the leader of this group played by Samuel L. Jackson. And, you know, that's the type of power I think a lot of people really want to have, the ability to just teleport to wherever we want to. Like, it would be cool to head out to teleport myself from, like, you know, here to, say, New York City or Hollywood or Los Angeles or, you know, Tokyo, Japan, just these places I've really wanted to go to all my life, Paris. Like, it'd be cool to have that kind of power in real life here. And I think that's what drew a lot of people to the movie in particular, is because of that concept alone. Now, this is based off of a novel by Stephen Gould, which I've never read before in my life, so I don't know how accurate the movie is to this, but considering that most of the negative reviews have come from the fact that the changes from the novel are very much different from the ones in the movie, yeah, that's pretty much not a good sign going forward for this film, but I don't think it's a bad movie overall. I think it has a good concept overall. The biggest problem with it is it's one of those movies that went through one of those rewrites that probably the studio wanted them to redo, and they basically had to change the main characters around, and it leads into a very complicated storyline here. Like, Samuel Jackson's character talks about, you know, there's always consequences for what you do, and it seems like the only consequence they have is just like, Samuel Jackson has, just like, I'm gonna steal your girl. That's the consequence. It's just like, there's really nothing at all to why Hayden Christensen should not be allowed to use this power wherever he wants to. I mean, like, it really does not make a whole lot of sense in terms of the spectrum of the sense of the movie. Why do I keep saying spectrum for some reason? But the point I'm trying to make here is that, yeah, the plot gets a little bit too ridiculous for its own good, and yeah, the film definitely tailors off at parts where it really does not need to go into these different areas, but I've seen much worse movies that have a concept like this and just fail miserably. This is not that type of a film. I like the concept alone of having this guy, you know, having the ability to transport wherever you want to. I think the script should have been a whole lot better. I think I will say that the action sequences here are not that spectacular by any means necessary. It does have a pretty quick anticlimactic ending that really just, it stings. It really is a pain in the butt to get through, because it's just like you really have to get, this is really how we're ending the movie? Like, this guy literally has no consequences whatsoever to his actions, even though Samuel Jackson's making such a big deal out of it. It's just like, he's jealous because I feel like he's jealous because he thinks he should be the only one that has these powers, it feels like. But again, I think it was because of all the massive rewrites they had to do here. Diane Lane has a pretty pointless subplot in this movie that really doesn't go anywhere. That really did feel like it was added in at the last minute. There's a lot of things about this movie that feels rushed and feels kind of pointlessly dragged in here, and it really drags the movie down in general. Like, Michael Rooker is in the movie. Michael Rooker can be a great actor when he needs to. We see it in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He's fun in stuff like Cliffhanger. I mean, the guy has a lot of good acting chops in here, and even his plot in this movie feels really pointless and adds nothing to the table whatsoever. And it's just kind of like, what are we doing here in terms of the story in general? I mean, I give it credit for being kind of a fun movie when it needs to, especially with the plot that it has, because we would like to have this. I would like to have this, you know, superpower that Hayden Christensen has. I cannot talk right now. It'd be cool to have the superpower in real life, but unfortunately, the film itself just doesn't really add to, you know, the whole idea of why should this guy be threatened by these people, except for the fact that they're probably jealous of him because he's doing the things that they want to do. they do not do a good job of explaining that much of the plot in general, and it feels like this is a rush film indeed. Like, it's just at 2 hours long. It's not even at 2 hours long. It's only 88 minutes, and as we've seen recently with stuff like Love Hurts, when you have a movie that is heavily trimmed down and basically is just being rushed out there to make a quick buck, yeah, it doesn't work out very well in general. And there's probably a good director's cut out there somewhere for this movie that I haven't seen, but it's probably a way better movie than this is. But as it is, it's a serviceable, passable film in general. It's not a bad movie like everybody else says it is. It's just a film that, yeah, the script really is the biggest problem with it, and the editing is the biggest problem with it. And yeah, that's the only real things I don't really like about it. But everything else I thought was actually kind of good. So yeah, a mixed opinion, but mostly positive on a Jumper. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Yet another attempt to create another Harry Potter-esque franchise. This is the Spiderwick Chronicles. So based off the best-selling book series of the same name, you have a story that follows the Spiderwick estate in New England, and you follow the adventures of Jared Grace, played by Freddie Highmore, who plays twin brothers in the movie, and his family as they discover a field guide to fairies, battle goblins, mole trolls, and magical creatures. And as I said before, this was kind of Paramount and Nickelodeon Movies' attempt to try to branch out of their normal family entertainment affair, like no longer doing like the Rugrats movies or the SpongeBob or Wild Thornberrys, bringing their Nicktoons to the big screen, and trying to do more original concepts, something like not really original concepts, but more like everybody else is doing, like another series of unfortunate events type of movie. This was one of their attempts to try to launch a new fantasy franchise, like I said, of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, with this movie, just to be kind of similar to that, and it does its job well enough. It's an overall enjoyable movie, and it's not the levels of Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, but it is still a really entertaining movie, and one that I could have easily seen probably making for a pretty entertaining series of films in general, had they continued to continue with the series in general. But the cast overall is really good. Like I said, Freddie Highmore plays dual roles in here. Sarah Bolger plays his sister. Mary Louise Parker plays the mother. You got Martin Short, Nick Nolte, and Seth Rogen as the voices of these creatures. You got a good script by Carrie Kirkpatrick, David Berenbaum, and John Sayles, which is very well done, keeping in the spirit of the books and while writing some pretty thought-provoking and intelligent dialogue for the characters' motivations. I mean, it's a really impressively looking film, too. The visuals are not cheap. They look like they put a lot of money into them. And you can definitely see where the budget went to on the screen. And you got some good music by James Horner, but then again, it's James Horner. The guy can usually bring you some really damn good music when he needs to. And it is just an overall fun film. It's a shame that it never became a new franchise, because out of all the attempts they tried to do with this was definitely one of the better ones. And this could have been something really special if they had gone with more movies. But unfortunately, we just have this one. But it works for what it is. A lot of good action, good acting, nice visuals, a good story. You know, it's definitely a book worth opening up when you really look at it. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next one we have here, and that is Step Up to the Streets. Gotta love how this trailer has to emphasize that this came out on Valentine's Day. I cut it off right when it literally says, hey, this is coming out on Valentine's Day. Basically saying, hey, guys, bring your girls to this movie. You're gonna bang after this movie pretty much. I don't know if that's what they're saying, but I'm just thinking that's what they're saying. But Step Up to the Streets. This is the sequel to Step Up, and boy, it is definitely a major, no pun intended, step up from the original Step Up. You have the story here taking place at the fictional Maryland School of the Arts, where you have a rebellious street dancer played by Brianna Evigan, who's the daughter of Greg Evigan from, what was he in? Who you older people out there will remember from stuff like BJ and the Bear and My Two Dads. Younger people might remember him from Seventh Heaven too, but his daughter is, of course, in this movie. Chalk another one up to nepotism, but good nepotism this time around. She plays a rebellious street dancer who lands at the elite school, finding herself fighting to fit in while also trying to hold on to her own life. She is eventually joined forces with the school's hottest dancer, Chase Collins, played by Robert Hoffman, to form a crew of classmate outcasts to compete in Baltimore's underground dance battle, The Streets, finding a way to live her dream while building a bridge between her two separate worlds. And like I said, this is definitely a major improvement from the first movie. And it helps that you have a director like John Chu, who, of course, has now gone on to become a prolific director of several Oscar contenders, including Crazy Rich Asians, and just recently this year, Wicked. And what makes this movie better than the original film is the fact that this movie really emphasizes more of how creative can we get with these dance moves. I mean, this is literally turning into the dance movie equivalent to the Saw movies. People aren't really going to these movies for the storyline, for anything clever in the story department, but they want to see how creative the new dancers are going to be. And there are definitely moments in this movie where the dancing is really damn good, and it helps that you got a lot of really good dancers in here. Brianna Evigan is very good as a dancer in this movie, and then again you also have a Cassie Ventura, who, let me just say, I'll just say that when we was back in the day when she was a musician, man, she was yeah. There's a reason why this movie emphasizes her kind of sexuality in some parts of this movie, because yeah, she was she was definitely something back then. Not to say that she isn't now, but let's just say that I watched the Me and You video and is a lot back in the day, especially during in high school when we were working on the news program. We'd have the TV on in the background with VH1's music video countdown playing, and that would usually play on a number of different occasions. And let's just say it is definitely worth the watch if you want to see some really good dancing from a beautiful, beautiful lady, because that's exactly what Cassie was back then. Again, not to say that she isn't now, but the point I'm trying to make here is that she's pretty hot, and yeah, the dancing is really damn cool to take a look at. This is where you start to see the growing the creativity of the dancers in this movie. Like I guarantee the writers were looking at this and going, Let's start working on some ways to create some unique, incredible dance moves. Like, what can we do to really up the ante here? And they would do that with every single step-up movie that came up after this, especially with the next movie, which has the benefit of doing it in 3D. But also the music in here is pretty good, too. This is the one that features the song Low from Flo Rida and T-Pain, and the next one would feature the song The Club Can't Even Handle Me Right Now, which is still a damn good song, but we'll eventually get to that one when we get to Step Up 3D. But not saying that this is a great movie by any means necessary, but this is a movie where you realize you're just coming in here to see how creative these dance moves are and seeing these beautiful people doing these dance moves. And yeah, it definitely plays out very well. The choreography is top notch. The cinematography is really good here. You see what John Chu brings to the table as a director that he would later show down the road with his other movies. It's an entertaining movie. It's a film that I did not think we were going to get as good of a film, especially after the first Step Up was kind of bland and generic overall, but this definitely works really, really well. Step Up to the Streets is a ton of fun. I highly recommend it. If you want to go in to see some impressive dance moves overall, Step Up to the Streets might be the answer for you. And yeah, like I said, it's going to get better from this point going forward in terms of the creative dancing that they do in these films, but that's just my personal take on it, per se. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie here, and that's Ryan Reynolds starring as a single father to Abigail Breslin as they try to figure out who's the real father to her daughter in this movie. This is definitely maybe. So as I said, the plot of this movie is set around New York City, where you have a former politician consultant played by Ryan Reynolds who tries to help his daughter, Abigail Breslin, understand his impending divorce by telling him the story of his past romantic relationships and how he ended up marrying her mother. So it's basically kind of How I Met Your Mother, the movie, except, you know, you're not sitting through 9 seasons of a TV show to find out who eventually the mother is, and the mother isn't eventually killed off, and then your kids tell you, you should go back to the person that you've been really in love with, even though the whole point of the show was about, telling you who the mother is. And yeah, I love How I Met Your Mother, but I'm sorry, that ending still irks me, and I'm glad they did an alternate ending when that show came out on a DVD, but we're not here to talk about How I Met Your Mother. That's a whole nother thing altogether, but you get the idea. This is a very similar concept, except it's much truncated down, and it's really between 3 women in general in this movie, and it's an engaging film that really does. It's another one of those movies that shows what Ryan Reynolds is capable of. He's not just a Van Wilder here. He has a lot of charisma. He has a lot of charismatic abilities, and he really is very well done. Very well very well done. Like he's a piece of steak or something. But no, he's a very good, well-written character here, and it helps you have a script from the people that did, Wimbledon, Bridget Jones, The Edge of Region. You have a lot of people who worked on Notting Hill and Love Actually. This feels like a film that feels like right in the same length as something like a Richard Curtis film. And you've got a lot of really good actors to make it work here. Elizabeth Banks, Rachel Weisz, and Kevin Kline, Isla Fisher. They all work very well, and they show a lot of chemistry with Ryan Reynolds, and you really don't know exactly where it's going to come together. Like, how are we going to find out who is Ryan Reynolds supposed to be with in general? And I thought it did its job very, very well. I think it's a very impressively put together film, and when they get to the reveal of who the Ryan Reynolds is going to end up with at the end, like, you get it. Like, you really do believe their chemistry all the way through, and you can believe that they are right for each other. And Abigail Breslin is pretty good in the film. Like I said before, this was around that time when they were really pushing her to be that next big star after the success with Little Miss Sunshine. She has like 3 different movies in this first half of the year where she's in it, and like they were really pushing hard for her to become the next big superstar, and it didn't really work out that way. She has gone on, of course, to become a notable star nowadays, but they were really pushing her to be the next big thing. But like I said, she works here as well. You got Derek Luke. Kevin Kline is really good in the film. It's Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline can usually make anything work, no matter how bad the movie is. But this is not a bad film. This is a really good film. It's a really engaging film, entertaining. It's one of Ryan Reynolds' more underrated movies in general, and something that definitely should be checked out more. I highly recommend checking it out, man, especially with Valentine's Day being today. Definitely seek Definitely Maybe out, because it is indeed more than just a maybe. It's actually a really sweet, really enjoyable film. I highly recommend it. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last film we have here. A much different movie than Definitely Maybe. George A. Romero returning to the land of the dead with, not the land of the dead, but a different kind of the dead. This is Diary of the Dead. Groundbreaking if you hadn't seen Cloverfield just the month before, because, yeah, this thing kind of got screwed over by Cloverfield coming out the month before. But in this film, you have a group of young film students who run into real-life zombies while filming a horror movie of their own. So this is kind of George A. Romero entering the found footage era and seeing what he can do with zombies this time around. And it's not a bad movie per se, but it definitely is a film that you do feel like kind of got screwed over by Cloverfield coming out, or the Weinstein Company just leaving it behind only for Cloverfield to come out and kind of take all the momentum away from it. Because this is a film that, if it had come out before Cloverfield, I feel like could have had a much more bigger audience in general. But as far as the film itself goes, it's just kind of okay for what it is. It's nothing that terrible. It's nothing that awful. It's nothing that awful. It's not that great either. It's just more kind of an in-the-middle movie. Like, it's cool to see practical effects once again, and George A. Romero does a pretty good job of using the found footage aspect with the zombies in general to make it work for what they're trying to accomplish here. I just wish that the film had a little bit more better characters in general. Like, most of the characters in here are pretty forgettable and pretty stock in general. There's nothing really that incredible about them, per se. The only one I think that comes out that's unscathed is Tatiana Maslany, but of course Tatiana Maslany has gone on to become a very, very impressive actress in her own right with Orphan Black and most recently She-Hulk. I mean, that's not really much of a shocker at all that she's really good in this, but I mean, there's a lot of cool things about the film I like. I like the fact that they do take chances with some of the concept they have here. Like, there is a lot of scary moments in here that do generally work very well. But I feel like there's so much more that could have been done with this if there had been better characters overall. But, like I said, as it is, it's a pretty good movie. It's a film that I think works very well for what it is. I feel like it could have been so much more, but it's kind of like with Jumper. It's a film that I'm more mixed on, but I would definitely say it's something you should definitely check out, especially if you've seen the other George A. Romero movies. It's not going to be your favorite one by any means necessary, but it's definitely a film that it should be in that same caliber as something like, Dawn of the, like Land of the Dead, Day of the Dead, the later movies after Dawn of the Dead. But this is a good one overall. I do say check it out, especially considering that I live in Western Pennsylvania, where I always see my buddy George at the mall. I feel kind of obligated to have seen this, and I saw it, and yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. So yeah, that's Diary of the Dead. And so with all of that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we've got 5 more movies to look at, including another high-concept movie similar to Jumper, featuring a pretty stacked all-star cast, which includes Dennis Quaid, Forrest Whitaker, and William Hurt among the cast. Sigourney Weaver's in here as well. Vantage Point. We have maybe one of Jack Black's most underrated comedies in general, with Mos Def, directed by Michel Gondry, Be Kind, Rewind. Another example is a return for the comedy category. Larry the Cable Guy and Jenny McCarthy in Witness Protection, which probably would have been a hit in 1998, but not 2008. And then you got Anton Yelchin and Robert Downey Jr. in Charlie Bartlett. And also you have the controversial movie The Signal. So 5 films to take a look at overall next time. We'll delve into all those movies on tomorrow's show, so be on the lookout for that. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, and the bell, because that's when you get updates on when new videos come out. And we do post new videos here every day. And don't go too far away, because after I'm done uploading this, coming up on Time About the Movies Flashback, we're taking you back to right in the middle of July 1987, July 17th, with 6 notable films, including the first RoboCop movie, the re-release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the 50th anniversary re-release, Jaws: The Revenge, Good Morning Babylon, Ping Pong, and Rita, Sue, and Bob 2. So we will take a look at those movies on Time About the Movies Flashback, which will be posted as soon as I'm done with posting this up. So stick around, because we will be back with that right after this.